Cool. What's up? I'm Boye Fajinmi. I'm co-founder and president of the Future Party, and we're a media brand that creates content at the intersection of business and culture.
Man, boy, yeah, I can't thank you enough for coming through and taking the time, man. I've been a big fan of what you guys have been doing. You guys have been doing it for a lot longer than I've been following you, but every day I'm scrolling through and checking out the newsletter. So really excited that we could finally chop it up. And again, thanks for coming through, man.
I'm happy to be here. I'm really stoked at what you're doing, and I can't pass up a smart, fun conversation.
Appreciate it, man. Likewise, likewise. So what I've been doing over the last couple of months, with the podcast, really since last summer, is kind of starting it right at the top and making sure that we're keeping, important conversations top of mind, especially, for me being a white guy in music and mainly in hip hop specifically. I think it's important to keep the Black Lives Matter conversation at the top. And, unfortunately, we've had another incident over the last week, and unfortunately it was in the same spot in Minnesota. So but before we jump into everything else, would like to start there, man, and just kind of get your thoughts on everything that's happened over the last 6 months, over the last week, over the last year, over the last your entire life, you know what I mean, with the Black Lives Matter movement.
Yeah,
Yeah, man, just really want to start there. Would love to get your thoughts and have a conversation about that.
for sure. No, and I appreciate that. I don't even know if you knew this, but I grew up in Minnesota.
Oh shit,
So,
no.
I was born in Nigeria, but I came to America when I was 3 years old, and I grew up in a city called Rochester, Minnesota, which is an hour south of the Twin Cities. So, I was actually home because of everything with COVID
Yeah.
during when all that George Floyd stuff went down. And it's so crazy to see another moment. I mean, this is like, I guess maybe like the third big one to come out of Minnesota. I believe Philando Castile a couple of years
Yep.
ago was another. And all I gotta say is just it's tiring. It's it's definitely sad. I think it feels that there's a lot more people who want to stand up for justice because of these events. I'm hoping and praying that all of these instances were not, you know, in vain. I think that there's a lot of people who are, standing up and working to make a difference. And for the African American community, it's like it is so humbling to have like a ton of support. But until you are, I think people don't really fathom just how important and impactful situations like these are. Like when I get pulled over, it's a much different feeling than if, someone like yourself gets pulled over. You know,
Absolutely.
you might be like, oh shit, I'm, don't want to take it. I need to get through this thing. And we have that feeling, but we're also like, oh dang, I hope I don't die. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think I think a lot of the other thing, and I don't want to make this conversation all about this. The other thing I think to remember, and I encourage people to remember, for the most part, people in metropolitan cities like LA, like New York, if they work in entertainment, they're all on the same page. We're preaching to the choir. You know what I mean? You have to change the minds of the people that don't understand, that keep perpetuating it. And I think, it's great to give awareness and post the IG accounts and all of that. But one of the big issues is a lot of people, because they don't actually want to bridge the divide, they've created their own ecosystem of other people who think like them. So things aren't really changing maybe as fast because they're just kind of like, I do my IG post for all the people who already think the same way as me. It doesn't really do anything, you know. But again, even that though is special and it's needed. And you know, we saw it with the Asian American community as well, you know, and it's not a black thing, in my opinion. It's about diversity and equality for all people, including Caucasians, right? It's like, and so I could go on for days, but you know, I'm just hoping and praying and trying to do my part.
Yeah, man. Well said. And you know, I don't ask that question lightly, and I don't ask that question as like I gotta make sure I do that, because I understand the weight that carries. And you know, I think I'm just trying to use the little bit of airtime that I get from people to make sure that
Sure.
they're focusing on the right things. And I say that to say, because I think it's a lot of times, you know, speaking from just what you were talking about, somebody, you know, who's been in New York, who's on the same page, who understands that and sees these injustices and is like, holy fuck, how do people not get this? But also like being from, you know, a smaller spot where those divides are there and people are like, oh, I'm not that. And then when something happens, you see where they really stand or where they really feel. And it's
Yeah.
because they haven't had that level of diversity in their life.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it's important to have the conversations and have the tough ones. But you hit on something too that I think is really important. It's about bridging that gap, you
Yeah.
know. And you know, social media has made it so much you're right or I'm right, you're wrong, or vice versa, or this and that. And I think it's way more nuanced. And what I've been trying to teach myself, and just like, I think this is just a good life principle too, is really just to listen, you know, and try and have empathy for the people that are going through something, as opposed to being extremely judgmental and being like, you're
Yeah.
wrong, that's not what it is, that doesn't happen. Just because you see it or you don't feel it doesn't mean it doesn't happen, and doesn't mean that it's not real.
Yeah.
And I think you know, I like, this happened to me like in the fall. um you know, I was talking to a family member, you know, who had said something, and it wasn't like offbeat, you know, they're the older generation. And you know, it was it's how that generation speaks, not using derogatory, but just like labeling
Mm-hmm.
certain things. And I was just like, yo, they're not called the blacks. That's
Mm-hmm.
not how you refer to black people. You call
Yeah.
them black people, you call them African American people.
Yeah.
That, you know, and it's, again, that even that is nuanced, yes, but it's, you have to at least start there.
Yeah.
And they weren't there, and I was just like, this came to me because I was like, yo, how, and they got a little defensive, and I was like, hey, I'm not, and I knew they were going to get that way, and I tried to preface it by like, hey, I'm not trying to rub you the wrong way, but I feel like it's important to have this conversation, you know. And they got all bent out of shape about it. And then I came back to it a couple of days later, and I just said, yo, again, apologies, wasn't trying to have an argument, but I do think it's important that you do understand that, like, that's not okay to say that anymore, you know. And I know that that group of people has wanted to be called different things over the years, but you should respect that.
Yeah.
And now they want to be called something different, so it's important to recognize that. And the final thing that I'll say about it too is, I was just like, you taught me that I should be standing up for the people that can't stand up for themselves
Mm-hmm.
and don't have the voice in the conversation. That's what you taught me.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're mad at anything, be mad at yourself. I was like, because this is just a mirror reflection of the principles that you instilled in me. I can't let this go by, you
Yeah.
know, and I'm trying to have the conversation, because this is where it matters. right?
Yeah.
It matters between us because the other people aren't there. It's like, my dad would always throw that out there too. Like, oh, do you run through a stop sign in the middle of nowhere if nobody sees you? No, you stop because that's the right thing to do, right?
Yeah.
That's the safe thing to do. This is that. This is another form of that. You're not comfortable with it. I get it, but like, hey,
Yeah.
this is important to have the conversation. And so,
For sure.
I'm trying to just like, sorry to cut you off. I was just gonna say, just trying to bridge that gap. I think that's extremely important to have the conversation. Not say you're wrong. Say like, hey, I empathize with your demographic, but like, hey, you also need to pay attention to newer things because it's important to keep up with the times on something like this that really fucking matters. I'm not talking about wearing a different color fucking shirt anymore because that shit is out of style. Like this is something completely different. And so, yeah, man.
No, for sure. And I'm glad you're able to have that conversation. I think that's just really ultimately the issue right now is people aren't willing to have conversation. So it's just a divide. Like, how many times have you potentially run into people, and maybe we're guilty of it of ourselves, and we go, I don't want to be this person's friend because of who they voted for or what they believe. And like, that stuff's not productive on either side. You need to be friends. You need to create relationships with people who think other than you. Otherwise, there will never be progress, period.
Yeah, exactly. And it really stemmed from that. Like last year, everything that was going on, people voting for Trump, like close friends kind of aligning with that. And I was like, yo, I can't talk to this motherfucker anymore. Are you kidding me? I'm not going to be able to talk to this. Holy shit. And at that point I was like, this is somebody who's been my best, one of my best friends forever. And I'm like, yo, I'm really not going to ever talk to this person again. I'm like, that's not going to do any good. That's not the answer. And so, because I almost called this motherfucker up and was like, yo, what the fuck are you doing aligning yourself with this shit? And I know for him, it was a bit more passive. It wasn't like he was actively doing things, but it's still, maybe stop and think. And the other conversation that I was just talking about kind of came at the tail end of all that stuff last year. And it was really from the election, just like you were saying. I said to myself, like, got to find a common ground first. Yeah. Hey, I'm not a Trump guy. I'm not voting for Trump. I don't think Biden is a great choice either, but he is our best choice to move forward with. He's going to align the right people and kind of restore some order and help get us on the right path. And that's why I'm voting for him. So I said, but hey, you want Trump? I'm going to completely disagree on his politics or what he stands for and everything as him as a person. But can you agree if like in 4 years he's out? Right? We agree on that. In 4 years he's out. Okay, cool. Let's start there. Let's start with your pro-democracy.
Yeah.
Like, hey, sure. I'm pro-democracy too. Like that's what we care. So that's it took me a while to like get there. I just kept trying to think like, what is the common ground with someone like that? And then it's like, oh man, everybody's so tight about this and that right now. It's like, cool. In 4 years, he's gone, right? You're cool. Great. Okay. So let's talk about what we need to do to fix the democracy.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. Getting deep as we start. I appreciate you talking about that. And again, like sincerely, thank you, man. I know this is tough shit to deal with and talk through. So thank you, man.
No, for sure.
Cool. So let's switch gears a little bit. We'll talk about, a little bit more about, yourself, your background, and kind of get into, some of the, the insights that'll be, helpful to listeners here. But yeah, man, let's start right at the top. Tell me a little bit more about how, you got your start in entertainment, how you guys eventually built the Future Party, how you made your way from Minnesota to LA and, kind of everything in between.
Yeah, man. Well, like I said, I was born in Nigeria and I came out to Minnesota when I was really young and had that, Midwest suburban life and came out to LA for school. I went to a private Christian school called Biola University, and they have a really dope film program. And so I was out there, and long story short, my senior year, I started interning for entertainment companies at film festivals, and William Morris Endeavor was one of those. And after I graduated, I started working there. I was an assistant to one of the agents, did some festival coordinating, and eventually left because I didn't want to be an agent. And I started working at Paramount Pictures. Was at Paramount for 3 years. First year I was assistant to one of the presidents there. She oversaw marketing and film and digital. And then when she ran television, I stepped up to oversee research in TV and digital entertainment, and left again just because I have that entrepreneurial bug in me. And we, some friends and I, just went all in on the Future Party, which to know more about that, you got to rewind a little bit. In between WME and Paramount, what we realized was that so many young people at the time, like myself, like yourself, come to LA to live the Hollywood dream, right? And, we like to say oftentimes, the Hollywood dream is the epitome of the American dream. And all of these people who come out here, being millennial, they are smart. There's a certain DNA to them that makes them so driven to want to leave where they're going near and far to insert themselves in this ecosystem. And so we knew that in the next 5 to 15 years, all of these people would be running various aspects of different industries. But at the time, they were pushing mail carts. They were answering phone calls, working overtime for no money. They felt marginalized, underutilized, literally all the buzzwords. But, we essentially created the Future Party to celebrate that future we knew that everyone had. And so we started by just throwing parties for, young assistants and coordinators at these entertainment companies. And as we grew, so did the brand. So parties turned into dinners and panels and branded activations. We started hosting events at Sundance and South by and Cannes and Coachella. And we got to a place where we had a dope brand. And that was great. I like to say, though, communities are great brands, but terrible businesses. And, it's an interesting age in which we live where it's not easy to create a community, but when you do, I think it's hard to sustain one. And so we were asking ourselves, well, how do we take this to the next level? Because we were making money, but it's just like, how do we make this like a livelihood, really have impact on a larger scale? And we felt media would be that solution, telling stories with the community, for the community, by the community. And so long story short, we created a weekly newsletter. I started writing it myself, and then we had some other people in the community guest writing, and that eventually turned into a daily newsletter, and we started growing. And along the way, we got acquired by an agency called NVE. We joke and call them our sugar daddy, but they've been great partners, and things are good right now. Today, we do 3 things. We do influence marketing. We do events. Currently, those events have been virtual for the last year. We're really active on Clubhouse as it stands right now, and then our newsletter. So we're writing content every single day, literally at the intersection of business and culture. That's always been our brand, and we've really made it a note to live within this lane. A lot of people, when I think of cultural media brands that we've grown up with, that we all respect, right? We know their names, Complex of Devices, that's great. For us, we wanted to go one step deeper and unpack the business of all of these cultural things happening. And we felt that very act and that very niche of people who work in the entertainment industry, in the marketing industry, in the sneaker industry, that are behind the scenes, is culture. That is what people want to do. That is what they want to be. That's what's steering the narrative. That's what's cool. We used to have a saying, we joke about it, but Mark Zuckerberg is our Jay-Z, right? And maybe we can use a different example now, but but back then he was, that was the thing. Maybe Evan Spiegel or someone, but you get it, right? It's like entrepreneurs are the rock stars, And so we're trying to create a global brand with that in mind. So that's the high level gist.
Yeah, man, appreciate it. You guys have been running this for, just like you said, a minute now, close to 8 years. You guys have done a ton of different activations, put out a ton of content, like you said, on a daily basis, which is just incredible. So, with kind of that in mind as the context, what's kind of been the career highlight so far for the brand? I mean, did you guys have some crazy event that was extremely memorable? Did you guys have like one of, somebody crazy reach out to you after reading, one of the articles, or no, excuse me, one of the newsletters?
Yeah, I think for me, what has been the most, there's been tons of moments I mean, you have to think, right, to go from an assistant to, having a decade's worth of experience in the entertainment industry and everything that comes along with it. I just feel blessed in general, just like everyone else, being able to go to great experiences, meet and be introduced to people. And I think what really hit for me is when people really started to see us as like a very respectable group and entity, where the people that I was looking up to now saw us as equals. The people that had inspired me even when I was in high school were now people I had access to. And whether that was just being able to consider them a mentor, work with them, or, really the main thing was speaking at our events, and over time, we've had industry veterans just like speak at our, programs, whether it's food and we bring, an awesome chef, or fashion. And, I'm kind of like avoiding names just because I don't want to.
Yeah, no, I feel you, man.
Last, but there are some dope people that I bought their clothes and now I can text them, that I went to their restaurants and they spoke on our panels. You know what I mean? I went to their tours and they speak at our events. And so it's just weird. That happened several times, and it continues to happen, and it feels good.
Yeah. Well said, man. Well said. And I think what's evident by the way you said that is that the thing that's most important to you is the connection. It's the right thing. It's not the name and the flashy shit. It's like, no, we set this thing up. They came through, and just like you said, you feel like just humble. And definitely feel the same way, man. Of like, and just doing the podcast, the people that have come through, it's just like amazing to be able to connect and just be like, oh shit, now you're able to build off that, and that's exciting.
Totally. Yeah. It's great.
Word. So want to switch gears a little bit and talk, kind of get into the weeds a little bit and talk a little bit more about Future Party, and kind of how you guys operate and what, up and coming artists and managers can kind of learn from what you guys have done. So like I said before, I love how consistent you guys are. Dropping shit every single day is extremely difficult. With kind of that as the context, what do you think independent artists can learn from what you guys do?
Yeah, I think I always think about like the day and age in which we live in, right? If anything at all, there's no time like the present for an independent artist to be empowered to do what they want to do on their own terms. Just the fact of the matter is, this is the best time ever in the history of existence to do that, and I think when you think of our story, which we've worked a lot within the music industry. I think at the end of the day, we looked at two different things, right? There's the community aspect. And I think one thing that I've just been thinking about lately is this concept of connecting to people one-to-one, right? And you know, when you think of the end result of being big, having a large audience, even then, it's always about a one-to-one conversation relationship. And, you know, we're just as jazzed about getting 10,000 new subscribers through a channel as we are 10, because every person is meaningful. And we started by literally looking at ourselves and looking at the people around us. And, you know, I think so. First, I think it's really about leveraging your immediate community and, you know, doing the work to build from that core. You know, like the startup community has a term, you know, goes do things that don't scale, right? At first, you have to do all the things that you feel take a lot of time, et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, that's so important because that's going to get you your product market fit, right? As an artist in this regard. And there's another sort of idea that has, you know, percolated within the startup community, which originally was create something 100 people absolutely love.
Yep.
Right. And recently that's turned into create something 1,000 people love, similar concept. But they say it in the sense of if you can create something that a small community loves to the point that they're willing to pay for it, that's enough of a foundation to pay for you to do that thing, you know? And then, yeah, then it's a flywheel and you can kind of grow from there. And that's really what we did, right? We took that community and we created something that like people were absolutely passionate about. For the 8 years, we had a digital forum where we were communicating every single day with people within our industry that were like the heartbeat of our community who loved what we were doing. And, you know, we were able to grow because we had a really cool and great foundation and we're still friends with a lot of those people today, you know? And so I think that's really important on that side. And then on the other, you know, is technology. You know, it's I think the most dangerous thing in the world is our smartphone and it's our laptop, right?
Yep.
And I think it's just finding innovative ways to just use that. You know, I think oftentimes a lot of people are, so if kind of like what we're talking about, it's really about developing that relationship, right? Just 5 years ago, right? I know the film industry the most, so I'll use the film industry as an example. To make it as a director, who's also a form of an independent artist, you know, the idea is you'd create this like 30-minute, you know, short film, then you'd go through all that rigmarole, and then you would go and try to submit it to as many festivals as possible to do a festival. And maybe if you got it in Sundance, some agent would pay attention to you. And it's just like, yo, you do not need that. All you need to do is to create 100 TikToks, find your audience, and that is it, period. You know, and I think the same thing can be applied to the music industry, right? It's like a little bit ago, it was do tons of shows, travel the world. And I think you still have to do that to some degree, but, you know, how can you scale your music? You know, create the music in your bedroom, you know, share it every single day through things like TikTok, through things like Clubhouse. You know, that's your audience. There's a thing on Clubhouse called the Lullaby Room, which is like blowing up. And it's, I don't know how familiar you are with it, but basically every night around 10 p.m., there is an evening concert where singer-songwriters debut their music, but it's like meant to be like before you go to bed. So everyone whispers and like, but like that's a showcase.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so, you know, I think people need to realize the technologies and the means of distribution available to them and leverage those. And so it's, you know, there's no wrong answer. It's about having fun and experimenting and just trying to get it out to as many people as possible. That being said, make sure your product is good. The way you'll understand your product is good is by making sure that you have that 100 people that love your product.
Right. And that goes back to doing the work every day. Too often I think people, they try and jump the work part and they go to, well, I know the clubhouse lullaby room's popping, so let me just get in there. And they haven't done the work to perfect their craft, to get it right, to know that that's a right fit. And then they go in there and then they just look like shit, or they look like misplaced. And then they're like, yo, those people weren't fucking with me. Fuck them. And it's like, no. You didn't come prepared. You didn't understand the nuances here. You didn't understand because you haven't been putting stuff out. So yeah, man, I wholeheartedly agree. I think too often when you're first starting out, a lot of people, especially in music, especially in hip hop, just try and go for like the get rich quick tactic. Like, how can I get to 1 million people right off the bat? It's like, whoa, you should think about how can I get 100 people, go really deep, and like, because there's so many things, so many nuanced things to that, to just getting the 100 people. It's super fucking tough.
Can I add?
Yeah, please. No, please.
I was just going to add one more thing. I think oftentimes, sometimes creatives focus on the wrong things. So again, I'm going to parallel the film industry. When I was at WME, everyone was just like, I need an agent. Can I get an agent? You know what I mean? Or a manager. And it's like, yo, like, I don't think you understand. The agents and the managers, they only pursue people that have things going for them.
That are hot. Exactly.
You know, it's like a dating relationship. You need to focus on you. You need to be the best thing since sliced bread, and then they will pursue you. But when you like, and by the way, just because there are hundreds, maybe thousands, probably thousands of represented artists who are nowhere, who have agents at the highest level in Hollywood. Just because you have an agent, it means nothing. You know, your talent ultimately is the thing that will open the doors for you, whether you're in the film industry or the music industry or an artist. And the power is in the people. 2 examples. DJ Khaled went from obscurity to being, for a season, to being the hottest thing because he focused on the people. He would roll up to the talent agencies, tell his audience to roll up to the talent agencies, and literally all he needed to do is just point out the window. You know what I mean? And be like, yo, that's where the power is. The reason why someone like Trump was so successful and still is to a degree is because he is a man of a certain group of people. And that is everything he does is for that group's appreciation so that he can continue to use them as leverage. And so you really should honestly just forget about representation, whatever. Create great content, connect with as many people as possible, and everything else will follow.
Yeah, man. Well said. Well said. 2 quick points on that too. One person I think who's killed it over the last couple of years, who's been able to spin off into everything, is somebody like Issa Rae. Like, she started out doing just that, making like shitty YouTube videos for a very specific audience to like really test her craft and like better perfect it and learn how to tell these stories and learn what works and what doesn't work. And then it got hot. Like, I just recently saw it. I was working with a kid. Same thing. He had a viral moment when a video of his went nuts on TikTok, and it was just like, that's when everybody reached out. And it was really, it's about doing the work. You know what I mean? And then that luck happens when you've been doing the work. Excuse me, the sustainability happens when you've been doing the work for long enough that the other people then catch up, because it's just like the one-hit wonder syndrome. If you get the agent super quick and you kind of, skip a bunch of steps and you get there, that's all you know. If that's your base, when shit gets tough and it gets hard, you don't know how to do the fucking work because shit was almost kind of given to you. And it's like people like Fetty Wap. It's so tough. This kid just blasted out of nowhere with these hit records. He had like 2 or 3 off that first project. And then it was like, his live show sucked. He didn't know how to do any of that stuff. He didn't know how to do interviews. He didn't know how to share a story and get people to buy in. They bought into the song. They didn't buy into him as an artist. And I think, just like you said, artists tend to get that wrong. And it's difficult. And a lot of times it's young and you just don't know. And you're like, well, that's how you get it to make money. And like, we need money for, survival. And it's like, if you flip it on its head, you're able to sustain that. And that's what I think is important. The other thing too, I like that you talked about the one-on-one. I talk about this a lot as well, is like the Jay-Z comparison. Like, if you go to a Jay-Z show and you see it, I'm like, even on the 444 tour, I remember a bunch of videos. He's so confident and so comfortable talking to one person in front of 20,000. It makes everyone feel that they know him, that they care about him. They are invested in him and his life and his music kind of secondarily. Like, the music is the backdrop that like fills the rest of the world. But you're into him is like, oh man, he's this inspirational person, because he'll be like, yo, stop the music. Yo, this person, haha, and just have like this one-on-one moment. And you're like, holy shit, Jay-Z just fucking called me out in front of 20,000 people. Yeah. It takes a certain level of artistry, of comfortability that only happens from doing the work. And like, you go back and look at those early Jay-Z videos, there's early shit out there on the internet where he's like playing early shows, and there's people like this, like, who the fuck is this guy on this stage? Like, stop, dude. And he had to go through that. He had to play in front of nobody to be comfortable, to be like, oh man, that worked or didn't work for this small group. And that's when the scale happens, because then you know what works and you just turn it on and you get people involved. So yeah, man, I love that you said that. It makes me think of that. One quick Khaled story too that I'll talk about. You just reminded me, I haven't thought about this in a long time, but when I was at Def Jam, this is like 2008, 2009. I was pretty cool with Lenny S, who's now his manager, but he was in A&R at the time, and they worked together on a ton of records. And I was sitting in Lenny's office one time and we were listening to music, and he, all of a sudden, Khaled calls him. And I saw Khaled a few times throughout the office, but I swear to God, he was the same person in 2008 when like nobody really knew him. And Lenny was like laughing and he put him on mute. And I'll never forget, he was like, yo, man, this guy, he's just fucking nuts. I love it. He's like, wait till you get phone calls like this. And the same shit that he's like throwing on his live is, he's like, we got to get this record done. We got it. Lenny, this record. And that's him. And I think it just took a long time, just like you said, for everybody else to catch up. But like, that was him from day one. And I'm glad
and again, just to piggyback off of that, all Khaled used was a tool available to anybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Snapchat stories, baby. That was it.
Amazing time, man. It was awesome to see that too, because he was also a good person. Like, I'd had some like interaction, and you could just tell he was a genuine person that cared. And so when he's doing that, he's doing it for show, but he means, he's really about the people and trying to bring them together and do that through music. And I think he's just been able to do that at a really high level for a long time. And so, yeah, man, well said. Want to talk about kind of the intersection of what you guys do. And just your live events. So like, how have you guys been able to, I guess, kind of two-part question. One, which came first, the live events or the newsletter? I think you talked about that a little bit earlier, but if you dig into that a little bit, that'd be cool. So the first question, what came first? But now, how do you guys, create value, for your newsletter subscribers with your live events? Obviously that hasn't happened over the last year, but for the people that have that came into your world and knew about the brand with the newsletter, how do you guys create value with the live events?
Yeah, so events came first. We were not, I think we knew where we wanted to go, but at first we were just doing this for fun. So, and we were doing it for ourselves. So it was about the live event. We did an event once a year for like 3 years. We did that one event so right that people kept talking about it for a full year later, and then we introduced a Halloween one, and then it became more about brands. And so, events are like the bread and butter for us to get people that one-to-one feeling. And what they get from there, I think one thing that we're really good at is curation. We're good at curating the content and the conversation, right? Like the things that are on people's minds that's going to educate them, that's going to get them excited about what they work on. And we're good about curating the rooms, the people that they're going to meet, that they're going to get connected to empower them to go be successful across the board. And so every event that we do, even if it's a party, we need to nail down like that curation element, right? Are the right people there? And so for us, you know, we I mean, right up until the pandemic hit, we were doing events. We had one that got canceled, unfortunately, which we were really stoked about because it was, we felt like very exemplary of what we aim to do. It was a play called Cages that like is like a play with holograms, and you know, but there's like an element where there's that community element there right before. And so, you know, when things come back, we'll continue to do those things. I will say though, what COVID has done is it's accelerated our future in a way, right? Where we now have a media business that we have to cater to and pay attention to. So how can we continue to create that the benefits of a live event even digitally? And so once the pandemic hit, I think end of April, May, we started doing virtual events. And we did about like 8 or so throughout the rest of the year. We covered topics like women in streetwear and the future of the music industry. And when things went down with George Floyd, we worked with a dope brand with Fullscreen and Warner Media, and we did a conversation on Black influencers and their relationship to big brands. And so, you know, we just changed the medium, but the essence was still the same. And, you know, similar with the turn of this year and Clubhouse, right? I think literally by the end of the year, everyone got fatigued with, you know, what was going on. And we said, okay, well, then let's go ahead and take the medium we see is going to be the next thing in Clubhouse. And so now we essentially an event a day through audio-based conversation. And so, you know, I think for us, we plan to always have events as a part of what we do, whether that's an experience every day or once in a while, just because it's the right way to catalyze community. By the way, any brand that's worth their snuff will probably do this. Any brand, whether you're Coca-Cola or another media brand, you know that you need to get people together at a certain point.
Yeah.
And so for us, what we try to do is we try to create a flywheel for our business in general. So if you come to an event, you're going to get onto the newsletter, right? And if you're on the newsletter, and you want invite, we'll sometimes, depending on the event, we'll invite you when we have those. We also, have we have a referral program where people can invite people for different rewards like swag. And one of those things is getting exclusive access to some of our events. And so we offer that as well. And so, obviously all events are different. We can't invite all our subscribers to a 20-person dinner. So sometimes we have to go like hand selected, but you know, we plan to continue to create a flywheel where events feed content and vice versa.
So, yeah, extremely important. I think for any artist, any brand, just like you said, like you have to figure out a way to kind of do both. And going back to what you said before, like this time is like the greatest time in history for artists. It's like, with great power comes great responsibility. It's like you have all these tools, you know what I mean? And you have to figure out a way to make them work, and you have to work harder. And when you're starting out, you got to work harder for less until you get things going. And the best way to do that, though, just like you said, is to be able to create value. I think that's something that a lot of people especially artists overlook. You think take, and me, I need this. But when you stop and you say, hey, how can I put out the best piece for this specific audience? I think, I mean, have experienced that in particular, like that drastic shift. And it sounds like you guys did too. Like you guys were all working in your other spots, and then you guys came together and you're like, no, we kind of need to create this space for other people because like it's fucking needed.
Yep. No, 100%. Yeah, everything you said.
Yeah. Another thing I want to talk about too, and I think this is where you know things are definitely going. And I know you spend, just like you said, you're kind of at the cross section of all these things. But NFTs are obviously something that's very hot. It's a hot topic right now. Looks like, from a lot of insiders, that it's going to be here for a long time. It's still going to take a long time to develop. These are still very, very early days. But yeah, wanted to, get your take on all of that. How do you see NFTs changing the value model for, digital content and artists? First question. Then the second question, what are some cool projects that you have seen already come out of this, or ones that you're, excited about that could come to fruition in the next couple of years?
Yeah. So I'll start with just my macro view, and then we can get into projects. But this concept of NFTs, right, as a non-fungible token, I think to really understand whether or not it's going to be successful in the future, we have to agree, and by we, I mean everybody, on what our thoughts are on the blockchain, right? And I believe, I like to say, like, in my opinion, history is cyclical, right? In the sense of what's happened in the past, or what's happening now, it's probably happened in the past, right? I bring that up because, if you look at what blockchain plans to disrupt, it's really things we already do. It's just, the blockchain is really just a more democratic, arguably more efficient verification system, right? And as humanity, what do? We constantly try to improve our lives through technology and efficiency, full stop. And so if you agree with both of those things, well, logically, we're always going to want to find improvements and efficiencies in the way that we spend money, in the way that we trade, in the way that we write contracts. And, traditionally, I would say the last 2 decades, startups, apps, whatever, have done that. And I think, the next disruptor is the blockchain. We're already seeing that, Coinbase, Bitcoin, all the buzzwords of literally today. Now, I think the one that we didn't really see coming and so big is the NFT revolution, right? Is the trading of digital assets. It's verification of digital assets. And I agree with you. I think it's here to stay, but my caveat is I don't know how long it will be hyped. That I think is up in the air. Hindsight 2020, but remember VR? VR's here, but when was the last time you used a headset? Probably some random party a year and a half ago, right? Yep. And so I think we may potentially see the same thing with NFTs. It's hype now. Everyone's doing it. Maybe by the end of the year, it might not be as hyped, but the core communities still continue to use it, and eventually it'll be adopted, right? I think you have people like, Mark Cuban, who I think he's kind of like the mega early adopter, right? So he's creating his Clubhouse competitor, but he recently he said a couple of interesting announcements, and I think I appreciate him because he likes to pave the way. So you can buy tickets to Maverick games with Bitcoin. He's thinking of making tickets NFTs, which are going to disrupt basically StubHub. And so to your first question, you know, I think everyone will experiment with NFTs. It's like, why not? But not everyone's going to be successful. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like all these artists doing drops, not everyone's going to sell out. Like, you know, but you know, we'll see. And I love that the value goes up and everyone gets their money, you know, so on and so forth. So I think that's good. Cool projects I've seen in the space, other than kind of what I just mentioned. I've really been paying attention to the art and music space, right? So Blau is obviously one that I think he's really paved the way in the NFT music space. Like I think people in the music industry look to Blau as like the dude who's like figured it out. Which again is an example of just like working hard and just being talented and continuing to reinvent yourself, leveraging tools available to you, based on our earlier part of the combo. And so he's done some good stuff. So we actually have been doing a lot of NFT drops within our clubhouse, which for some reason, like I joke and I call Clubhouse NFT House. Like if you are launching an NFT, you go to Clubhouse to launch that NFT. I don't know why, but like that's where you go. And so, you know, it's been cool to see friends and people work on projects. And so like, you know, you have people like Bobby Hundreds who's making all of his designs NFTs, and you know that's really dope. And then you know one of my friends, Thank You X, we do a weekly room called Everything's Art, and we bring up different artists to speak. And we've just seen so many artists just talk about the work that they're doing. And Thank You X too has dropped some like really cool art pieces that I just like am obsessed with. There's this I'm just trying to think of all the cool things. Company called Super Plastic. They create like fun toys like this one. And they're doing NFT stuff like that. Yeah, so I mean there's some ridiculous ones like Charmin doing an NFT and so on and so forth, some brands. But I'm more like the art example I think is like it's interesting, but when someone like Mark Cuban says all tickets are going to be NFTs, then that perks my ears up, you know.
Yeah, agreed, because there's so much more weight behind what he's saying, and potential impact is just like far greater. Like that.
There's another project. So obviously NBA Top Shot is a huge one that people call to, but I recently just saw that Topps, the baseball trading company, is going to do NFTs. Like that is like when I think when companies that own the IP are going to start doing NFTs, I think that's when we're going to see a lot. Like what if Marvel starts doing NFTs? Like one of our friends we were talking about, and then I'll shut up. Like, imagine if like you could NFT the Infinity Stones and like a one of one like Power Stone. Like that's just like there's just so many, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And then you could actually use that at, I don't know, fucking Disneyland when you go to like the rides or some crazy shit.
Free
like
pass for life or something.
Exactly. There's so many cool ways to like integrate that. And yeah, I agree. I think NBA Top Shot. I got into it a couple of weeks ago. Some friends and I, we were just like, yo, everybody chipped in $100, and we were like, we started to buy and trade just to see what was up. And you know, I kind of spearheaded that because they were like, yo, Murph, what the fuck is this? And I was like, guys, it's just simple. It's just fucking digital trading cards. That's it. They're like, just NFTs, and I was like, yes, but just don't worry about that shit, okay? Like that doesn't matter. Just think of it as a digital trading card and operate from there. And I think because of what they're doing and the scale at which they operate, it's the fucking NBA. Like that's an official partnership. It wasn't some knockoff fucking brand trying to do some shit or some guy in this platform.
Yeah.
It was legit. And so, you know, fucking NFL is going to have shit this season. I guarantee it. You know what I mean? Like they have to be working on that. And I just think everybody else will. So yeah, I do agree. I think there'll be a huge market for it. But over a long period of time, it'll just be like those people interested in trading cards. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like trading cards kind of died out. Well, I'm sure when we were a kid, like it was kind of popping when I was a kid, fucking 20 years ago. It was like 15 years ago. It was like something that we did. It was like, okay, this is cool. And then it just went away because nobody really gave a shit. But some people stuck with it, and it's in collectibles. And like Gary Vee talks about this shit all the time. Like there's so many people that make tons of money off that. And that's like, and it's cool. So there will be that niche, those niche markets, and it's just something cool. Like I did it with my friends is just a way to like, catch up and shoot the shit. Like we're all basketball fans, so it's like, hey, we don't get to talk as much anymore. So like, let's talk once a month about like what we like and who we should pick up. And it's just, to me, I think it's a better fantasy sports. You know what I mean? Because like
Mm.
you can make fucking money off it, and
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you still get all that same shit. So I think that's cool. The other part that you talked about too, just from getting back to the music thing for a second with the NFTs, I think the important thing is like the ability, hopefully, that because the technology is there, it just needs to be adopted. But um, for artists to just get paid in perpetuity for their work. That I think, especially with music and especially with like digital fucking creators, to like not get ripped off by people will be extremely important. Like they can make money for the rest of their lives for putting something out into the world. And I think that's important
Yeah.
because you need that to live so that you can keep making the great stuff. And
Yeah.
think about all the artists that, you know, weren't able to continue to keep making great art because they weren't able to support themselves. You know what I mean? They had
Yeah.
to stop and go do some bullshit. So I think like, yeah, that value is also like intrinsic too. So yeah, I
Mhm.
think it's cool. Speaking of Gary Vee, wanted to touch on this for a second too, and I think this is kind of what um, this is the question for like how big NFTs can really get. But I recently watched something with him where he was talking about NFTs and he made a great point. Wanted to get your take on it. He said once people figure out a way to stunt with an NFT, we'll get even bigger. Like you can stunt with your fucking Virgil Nikes. You know what I mean? Like you can stunt with Kanye merch, all that sort of stuff. What are your thoughts on where you think people will be able to showcase their NFTs?
I mean, he's not wrong. And that's been the biggest question for a lot of people. It's like, why? Why am I buying NFTs?
Right.
And it feels like almost to a degree, a lot of people are buying just treating it like the stock market in a way. They're like, what's
Yeah.
the resale value? This buzzword. But at the end of the day, like if I buy an art piece, right? I can hang it in my walls. But, you know, like when I try to answer that question, I try to think of like the existing behavior that people have. Because I think fashion is just one use case, but art is another, right? Like I have a dope piece of art in my room, and only a handful of people are going to see that piece because
Right.
not I don't invite the world into my room, you know. Um and uh I think this might be a little different. It should be different because why else would you want to own a digital asset unless you wanted to make money off of it or you
Right.
want to brag about it? And so I know there are some people who are wanting to create almost like um, gallery type experiences where people can showcase their NFTs. That seems fine to me. A lot of other people speculate you can show off your NFTs in a virtual world, which is like okay, but like I don't want to live in VR you right
Right.
now, you know.
or
Um,
or the people that you care about aren't there either, so it's like
yeah,
the
right,
value in that. Yeah.
right. Maybe you could showcase it in some games, but I think the people to look out for is maybe like, is there any way you can showcase it on your existing profile, right? And like social media profile and
Yeah.
just see what people own or whatever. Otherwise, I don't have the solution to that. I don't know how when I buy this cool piece, I feel fulfilled where do I show it? Where do I enjoy it? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, I do agree, and that's kind of one of the reasons I got into Top Shot was to see. I was like, how is this really going to make me feel? Like, am I going to give a shit that I have this Kevin Durant fucking dunk? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not looking at this shit, on a consistent basis. I check it when I go in there, but I see it very easily getting into like more like a fucking day trader type of thing where you're like literally trading stocks, and I'm like, it's a fucking
Yeah.
job, man. Like I'm not really trying to do that sort of thing. So yeah, I totally agree. It's kind of an interesting
I
spot.
think that if because this is what I'm not too familiar on, but to my understanding, copyright is not the same as NFT. If there is some way to figure that part out, where if anyone uses that dunk that you purchased, where in the same way, if I'm on YouTube and I use a song, they either take it down or they give people royalties from the ads. Like if I could like not only display that dunk somewhere in my house or digitally, but also verify that whenever someone remixes it, uses it, leverages it, I make money or I get credit. That I also think is when it becomes extremely valuable.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree. I'm right there with you. Yeah, and that's that to me. I love that you said the social piece. Like if you can showcase these on your profile, because I think you're gonna see either these, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Clubhouse, like all take advantage of that, and somebody's gonna open up that new feature in a fucking Snapchat, allow you to do that sort of thing. Because NBA Top Shot doing it is like the whole world can't see it. You got to have the Top Shot account to be able to go on there, and then you got to click on the person's thing. So I think for it to be at scale, yeah, you're going to need somebody big, or you're just going to need somebody big to enter into this new space to create that digital gallery that people give a shit about. To create that digital gallery, that's the Met, that's the equivalent of the Met, or doing that like in the real world. Like I think, you know, uh, somebody showcasing something. If there was, I had this idea, and I would know, I don't know how it would work, but if you had like a billboard in Times Square, like a company like dedicated that space to allowing people to showcase their shit, I think that would be kind of interesting. And like, what does that mean? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And like, who gets to put their shit up there? And that's where I think the value, that's just an interesting thought, because I think it's cool. We'll see where things go. Um,
Yes, we
but
will.
yeah, man. But hey, we've been talking for an extended period of time. I appreciate you taking the time today. Gonna get you out of here, but before we do that, just wanted to check in. What are you excited about? That you're working on, that you're looking forward to over the next couple of months, and yeah, where can people get at you and sign up for the newsletter?
Yeah, for sure. We're always looking to innovate the way that we tell stories. I say media is really just telling stories on different mediums. And right now we're tunnel vision on a couple different ways that we're doing that, which is really our newsletter and Clubhouse. And so, and our social accounts. And we just want to grow our community and get people involved and stoked on what we're doing and help as many people as we can in their own careers and ways that they're influencing culture. So to get at us and subscribe to the newsletter, it's just futureparty.com. You can subscribe and get our newsletter every day, get some really dope things and announcements from us, cool initiatives that we're doing. We are actually building a Discord server for our community, and so people will be able to join that if they're active on our newsletter, and that's going to be really sweet for, again, some of these things that we were talking about. Our Clubhouse is just the Future Party. Join us. We're, I think, almost 15,000 people strong and growing, so we'd love for you guys to join the rocket ship. And then last but not least, we are Future Party on IG. And that's just the best way to reach us. And I'm just at Boye on IG as well. So the ways.
Singular, man. This is tough. A name like Mike Murphy, I can't pull that off, man. Everybody's like, mine's the GOAT 2312. People are like, the GOAT. I'm like, hey, you know how many Mike Murphys are, and not to mention, I stay consistent, man. It was my second AIM screen name. Okay, like my first one was fucking PTP or 2312. Man, I'm a big Dickie V fan. Then it was like, you know what? Then Slam Magazine dropped the GOAT issue with Jordan. I was like, oh shit, I gotta change it up. So I've been the GOAT 2312 for 20 years solid. So like, come at me. It's always funny when I'd like, when you got to call somebody and you're talking to like a government official or your fucking cable company, and they're like, did I get the GOAT? I was like, yeah, like the animal. Every now and again, somebody be like, oh shit, like Michael Jordan. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, you get it. Cool. We'd be friends. But, hey man, again, I can't thank you enough for the time and the conversation, man. Hopefully we can continue this and
for sure
find something to work on. And yeah, man, just appreciate it and appreciate the newsletter too and the work that you guys do. It's fucking awesome, man.
Thanks, man. It was great to jam with you, and I look forward to chatting more.
Absolutely, bro. All right, man. We'll talk soon.
Cool. Peace.
All right, thanks. Peace.